we'll see what it does. Okay, we're live. Okay, we're live, and it is Real Talk on Real Estate. And we're talking about how Trump's Gulf deals affect U.S. real estate. Does it really affect U.S. real estate? In what ways, right? Like, what do you need to know as an investor right now in this current market to be able to take advantage of opportunity or restrict yourself from investments because of these U.S. Gulf deals that we just in the Persian Gulf we just made, like Saudi Arabia and these guys. Okay, so let's talk about this stuff, and let's just talk about like some of the real estate changes that have went through legislation just over the last 60, 90 days, and how they actually affect real estate investors and developers. We're going to go all through everything here, guys. One of the big things, but I'm not just going to go through them. I want to explain them to you guys so you understand like exactly the attributes or the restrictions that you need to pay attention to, right? I know that everybody's like on their high horse about tariffs and how it's going to affect it. That's like what everybody's talking about, right? And I'm going, look, guys, the attributes overweigh the downsides. And truth be told, the tariffs haven't even affected us. In fact, I'll tell you, and I'm just going to start with this because I want to talk to you guys about like real trades and negotiations and what's happening. And this will help you better understand about some of the trade deals and how they're really affecting the U.S. economy in reality, okay? Because the country needs to be ran like a business. Like if I go out and I spend, if I only make $150,000 a month but I have $250,000 a month in expenses as a business, you go out of business eventually. Like you can't sustain $250,000 worth of expenses every month when you only make $150,000, right? But that's the way the that's the way our government ran for years. Okay, so let's explain this stuff, guys, and let's go through this because it's not run like a politician anymore. It's run like a business. At least that's the direction we're moving in, right? And so let's talk about how this affects U.S. real estate investments, so forth and so on. And one of the big things, ladies and gentlemen, is just knowing how to position yourself, right, for these investments and what's going on. And I'm going to go over one specific means of raising capital that right now every single investor should be paying attention to. Every single investor should be paying attention. Like if you don't have enough money to continue investing and scaling your business, you need to put your distractions aside and listen for the next 10 minutes on what I'm talking about here, because this one variable will increase your ability to raise capital and get overseas capital right here in the United States on your projects, private sector projects, just like yours. Doesn't matter if it's a single family home, doesn't matter if it's multifamily, doesn't matter if it's warehouse, distribution centers, doesn't matter. Okay, so let's deep dive into this. Okay, now $600 billion in Saudi investments into the U.S. That's going to help us, guys. So when you invest $600 billion into a country, it creates jobs. Okay, now what I'm going to talk about right now is going to be in exact relation to what I give you right at the end to share with you guys about investments into the United States, because this all rolls together, ladies and gentlemen. Believe it or not, it all rolls together. So $600 billion comes in the United States. Now, do we just build buildings? Okay, like who runs these buildings? Who runs everything that's happening right now? Like there's $5.8 billion going to be allocated to healthcare. Okay, so $5.8 billion of this $600 billion. There's $4.8 billion that's going to Boeing. Now, let me explain to you guys something about Boeing, because I follow this stuff. Because what I do in real estate is most real estate investors don't invest in stocks. Stupid. Let me explain why. My money compounds. That's why I'll say compound your success. And here's why. Because we'll go in and we'll only invest in big blue chip stocks, like big companies, Johnson & Johnson, Intel, companies like Boeing, GMC, Ford, Verizon, the towers, ExxonMobil, these big companies that pay dividends. Because if the stock goes up and continues to go up, you make money on the returns. But if you have dividends that are paid, whether the stock goes up or down, those dividends get paid on that stock. Well, I remember I had Boeing. I was like, okay, there's two major plane manufacturers, okay? Two major ones. Boeing and Airbus are the two biggest airplane manufacturers, right? That are making commercial airlines. And so you sit back and you go, it's almost a monopoly. So how do you go wrong owning a stock like Boeing, okay? So let me just give you this as an example of how it affects us, and then let's move into the real estate sector even more, because this even helps everything that we do in real estate. It's going to help me. So Boeing has been in financial distress since the pandemic. They haven't been able to pull out of it. And it's because of mismanagement, and truth be told, bad CEOs that are taking millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in bonuses, while their stockholders are taking a shit and dumping stocks because they're losing their ass. How this works in America and how this isn't a state of disaster and the means for indictments is beyond my wildest dreams. Like, they should have indicted the CEO of Boeing and put his ass in friggin' prison. Okay. Now, so they didn't. Like, they interrogate him, but they didn't do shit to him. And they apply for this bailout money. CEO is getting fucking paid $100 million bonus in one fucking year, and stockholders are taking it in the ass. And let me tell you guys, so what ends up happening, guys, is that they take this bailout money. Boeing can no longer pay dividends to stockholders and shareholders. So I say, shit can Boeing. Like, just get rid of it. I don't want it no more. Why would I invest in Boeing when I can't get my dividends paid out? All right. That's like taking my internal rate of return on an investment. Like all you multifamily syndicators, your distributions just got shit canned because of loan modifications. And now you just have to hope that you have an internal rate of return when you sell the asset, if you don't take a dump on that as well. Right. It's very similar, because very similar things are happening in the market. All right. $2.7 trillion of commercial real estate coming back onto the market because of bad loans and bad decision-making and high interest rates. It isn't that interest rates are actually even high. It's that interest rates got too friggin' low, guys. I recognized this in 2018. In 2016, I bought my first apartment complex, like big one. I had a bunch of small shit. But in 2016, I buy my first big apartment complex. I buy that thing at an 8 cap. I go 9 months later, and the turn of 9 months, the cap rate goes down by 1%. When cap rates go down, values go up. So I buy a shittier apartment complex with less units, and I pay $1.2 million more for it. I'm like, I scratch my head and I go, holy shit. And I'm shopping this stuff, guys, shopping. So now we're at a 7 cap. Still 2016. 2017 rolls around and it drops. We go from an 8 cap to a 7 cap. So then 2016 into 2017, we go from an 8 cap to a 7 cap to a 6 cap in 18 months. And I sit back, I scratch my head, go, no friggin' way. This is ridiculous. So then I go in and I start building. I said, screw this. I ain't going to buy that shit. And I told the brokers this. And this all relates to this, guys. So hang tight. So I tell the brokers this. I say, hey, look, I said, who's in their right friggin' mind is buying this shit at such inflated prices? The markets can't sustain this. And they said, everybody's buying it. And they were right. Everybody continued buying it. So 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23. And then that's where loan modifications started coming in. Because what happened to interest rates, ladies and gentlemen, in 2023? They went up. And when they go up, cap rates have to go up. That means values go back down. And so most syndicators do a 5-1 arm. So they do 5 years fixed rate mortgages. And then after 5 years, they become volatile. They're adjustable rate mortgages. Now the values go down. Banks aren't going to finance it. And these guys are trying to get loan modifications to sustain life, to bridge over the gap. So they're hoping that interest rates go back down. I got news for you guys. Interest rates in the near future will never go back down to where they were in 2020, guys. We're not going to see sub 3% interest rates anytime soon. So don't be jumping out of your pants thinking that, because interest rates aren't high right now. People just fuck shit up. They just went in and started buying dumb shit at dumbass prices. I started building. I controlled my variables. I saw the writing on the wall. I stood in front of a room in Irvine, California, and I told everybody, you watch, as God is my witness, all these people investing in this dumb shit right now are going to be screwed in a handful of years from now, if not sooner. And it lasted longer than I thought, ladies and gentlemen. But to our benefit, we kept building and we are stabilizing these things in excess of 15% cap rates. Our returns were amazing. So Boeing gets away with this bullshit, right? And so now Trump goes in and he goes, okay, what do? Shit can Boeing? We can't, they're one of the two largest airplane manufacturers in the world? Or do we continue just giving them money and feeding them money and bailout money, which is worthless? It's like trash can money, giving the CEO bonus, rewarding the CEO for being a fuckhead, for being a shithead, having what I call cranial anal inversion, meaning that he has his head so far up his ass that he can't smell the light of day, ladies and gentlemen. And that's just the truth of it. And so, okay, so you get this dipshit that should be indicted that isn't. And so now we're giving him bailout money to give himself bonuses with. And that's what our U.S. government's friggin' doing. Trump comes in and goes, we're cleaning this shit up. Hands down, we're going to clean this shit up. Okay? Now, Trump comes in, they go in and they do this Saudi deal where Saudi Arabia comes in and invests in fighter planes, and they invest in cargo planes, and they invest in passenger planes, and they give Boeing $4.8 billion worth of business, not bailout money, business. That's what they need, is they need business. They don't need bailout money. They need business, ladies and gentlemen. Like, think about it. If your business ain't producing income, you don't have a business. When your business produces income, you have a business. So instead of giving them bailout money, there's business money. What does that do for Boeing, guys, in our U.S. economy? Jobs, job stimulation, executives, engineers, high-level jobs. Yes, some are warehouse and manufacturing jobs. That even helps our economy. The middle class, ladies and gentlemen, D.R. Horton, Pulte, Lennar Homes, and all the big track builders. And then there's the executives. $4.8 billion worth of stimulus money into the United States for Boeing, U.S. companies, our healthcare. Okay, GE, who has been volatile, right? It's been up and down. But the energy solutions that GE is bringing, they're bringing $14 billion to a U.S. company. General Electric has been around forever, guys. I remember as a kid, we had a big General Electric plant right here in my backyard. And so they're bringing $14 billion. You know what that does for our economy? It brings jobs. The number one asset that people have to have is a home, a roof over their head, ladies and gentlemen. The number one investment people make is a home or an apartment, a roof over their head. That's the number one investment. So you real estate investors, all of this helps stimulate our U.S. economy. It helps us, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, that's just the truth of it. Okay, now, so they're investing $2 billion in U.S. service exports. So the services that allows us to export goods and services overseas. Okay, so now we have $2 billion worth of jobs. That helps out on the freight, on all the ports. That's job stimulation. Ladies and gentlemen, Saudi Arabia is bringing $600 billion worth of jobs to the United States. Stupid or ingenious? I just read this stuff on CNBC and I was like, I just go, oh my God. Like, how do you not see the writing on the wall? Like them, hate them. I'm like sitting back going, do you not have a brain big enough to, I'm sitting back going, how can bringing $600 billion to our country hurt our country, right? And so we sit back and we go, there's $110 billion going into U.S. arms, okay? That's just in the first year, guys. Over the course of the next 10 years, they're bringing $350 billion to the United States in U.S. arms, okay? Job stimulation, government spending, which is wasteful already anyways, and it's going to continue to be wasteful. I'm a part of that because we do government contracts, concrete work, and all that stuff. It helps stimulate the economy. We dump all that money into real estate, okay? Now, $20 billion into AI, which is the future. Artificial intelligence is the future. So we get a benefit from it, and we get the job stimulation from it, and we get to invest in artificial intelligence, and we get to invest $20 billion right here in the United States. How about $80 billion in transformative technology? Okay. We live in a tech industry. We evolve more in one day than what we used to evolve in 10 years back in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. We have more technological investments in one day than we had in an entire decade in 1950, 1960, and 1970. I mean, you go beyond that, we all know that there was no technological advancements, right? But we get $80 billion in job stimulation. Computer engineers, ladies and gentlemen, are incredible. Now, let's talk about bridging the gap for U.S. real estate. And let me put this all together for you guys, okay? Because when we talk about these U.S. And Saudi Arabia in the everything that's happening in the Persian Gulf area. Let's talk about this real quick and how it affects us and what the benefits are. And I'm going to talk about one type of investment that every single person on here needs to be paying attention to right now. Okay. Now, before we do that, let's talk about what has changed in legislation just since February. And let's talk about this. So we have bonus depreciation back, 100% bonus depreciation in the very first year. That's incredible. So for business owners, you can go in and you can buy a piece of real estate and take 100% bonus depreciation on it. You can take it down to 0 in 1 year. Now that's minus the land because land doesn't depreciate. You can buy farm equipment, work trucks, work vehicles, and depreciate 100% of them very first year with bonus depreciation. You can buy equipment for your business, manufacturing, data centers, all of this stuff, and take bonus depreciation on all of that in the very first year. Okay. So at the end of the year, instead of having to go out and buy a stupid vehicle like most people do, you can go buy some real shit that makes you money. That's awesome. And take 100% depreciation. Now, another thing is the Tax Cut and Jobs Act is bringing back the 100% bonus depreciation. They're bringing mortgage interest deductions, which is great. We have the QBI, which is the qualified business income deduction, where you can go in and you could take 20% of your income that you generate through your business. Like if you pay yourself revenue for your business to live, you could take the qualified of 20% of that as a tax deduction as a business owner. So you could take 20% of your overall income and deduct it as a business owner. So that's new this year. It's called QBI, qualified business income. Opportunity zone incentives have changed. That stuff still isn't completely finished, so I'm not going to talk about opportunity zones, but there's going to be incentives in opportunity zones. Depreciation there's going to be deregulation for developers and builders, opening up zoning and permitting opportunities that'll help, which also comes down to like tariffs and trade policies and stuff like that, which PS, by the way, guys, lumber, when they announced there's going to be tariffs, spiked for about a week, and then it plummeted even lower than it was pre-tariffs, and it's still lower. We're lower by like about 15% lower on lumber prices right now than we were just 60 days ago. Okay, spiked for a week, dropped down 15% lower than it was prior to that. So we have lower lumber prices than we had even just 60 days ago before the tariff scare was a big deal. And they haven't come back up. And according to my suppliers, they're not going to go up. And if they go up, they're going to be so modest, it'll be less than 5% increase. Okay. Housing is increasing at a faster rate than the tariffs are really affecting the overall cost to build. Okay. So just FYI. But it's going to push up house prices anyways, because people use it as an excuse. As labor prices and other prices domestically go up, we push the prices of real estate up. So you guys are doing us a favor. When you guys talk about tariffs, the more all these bullshit channels talk about and scare people, domestically, people just start hiking prices on you guys. And it's not even coming from overseas. It's domestic. Okay. But you believe what you want to believe, guys. I live, eat, and breathe this every single day. Every single day. I'm in it every day with supply houses. I'm in it with my contractor, my supply houses, all my trade professionals every single day of my life. And I'm telling you what we see on the forefront, boots on the ground. Okay. This is the reality. It's not bullshit you watch on television. It's the reality of what's happening in the real world that we as developers, in the real world are seeing in real job sites, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now, how do we bring this money in? Now, for us, okay, great for the U.S. economy, right? Like they're creating jobs. But as real estate investors, how do we get this money? How do we bring some of this in to us? So what do you think Trump's doing, right? Like, how do you think they're doing their developments? Investors, where do you think they get the ability to go out and invest and build more Trump towers? Investors, ladies and gentlemen, they bring this stuff in from overseas. Now, in spite of all the problems we have here in the United States, it's still the most sought after country to get residency in and to get a green card in and a work visa in is right here in the United States. But because of the immigration laws, it's hard. It was hard with Biden. It was hard with the Clintons. It was hard with the Obamas. It's hard with Trump. So our U.S. regulatory laws are hard. It could take you 10 years to get residency, even if you have a job, even if you're paying your taxes, even if you're doing everything right, until your country has an opening for a visa you can't get residency. So if you're like coming from India or China, those are the two most sought after visas in the United States. You have to wait for one to come up and available for you to qualify for it. And if you're not qualified because you've missed stuff, it could take you longer than a decade to get residency, even if you do everything right. Okay? That's the reality behind it. Now, Middle Eastern, a little bit easier. People coming over from other countries are like Europe, like Europeans don't want US residency. Most of them don't, Canadians do because of our taxes and our dollar bill stronger, but it's hard for all of them, equally as hard. So they created the EB-5 GC. It's for it's the US investment visa. Okay. Now, here's the thing. You go in, and if you develop in rural areas, and there's like a map that distinguishes this, someone could come in and invest $800,000. Okay. One investment. They don't even encourage you to pay them back a modest return. They want you to pay them back almost nothing. So you can give these people 1%, 2% returns. In fact, if you make it enticing, they won't even allow you to qualify for the EB-5. They don't want it to be enticing because the enticing element of the EB-5 is the U.S. work visa. It's residency. It's a green card. But if you do these rural areas, you can get $800,000 investments at a singular time, and it can help them get residency in 12 months, 1 year. Okay. Provided there's a visa available. Okay. Now, when you do that with the EB-5 GC, you can also invest in urban areas. And when if you don't have an investment in a rural area, the amount they have to invest is greater. It's almost $250,000 more. It's $1,050,000. And so that's the minimum investment. Now, it's easy to bring money for investors from overseas. All you got to do is create a structured entity, an LLC, an LP, or a sub S corp, C corp. But if you go in and you create like an LLC, you can invest money in the United States and buy real estate. You can bring it in from overseas, and you don't even have to be a U.S. resident, which is really cool. But you don't have the immigration benefits. That's the only downfall to it. So if you already exercise the EB-5, you can go in, and there's some parameters and bylaws with EB-5, but there's third-party companies that help you with those bylaws that you don't even have to go do this stuff on your own. You pay a modest fee. When I say modest, it's expensive, but not as expensive as trying to raise capital or equity for your deals. And so when you go in and you do this, ladies and gentlemen, you now can take on these same folks that invested $800,000 or $1,150,000, and you could take their money in, the rest of it in as an LLC, because some of the people from like Saudi Arabia and in the Gulf, in Middle East, ladies and gentlemen, these guys have a lot of money. Chinese money, there's no lack of money out there. Okay. Now, when you bring that stuff over, they may not invest a lot because they don't want to make a 2% return on their money. It's stupid. Why would you go in, and if you have the ability to make a 15% or 20% internal rate of return on an investment, why would you invest all your money through an EB-5? So most people don't know this. They'll sit back and say, well, I'm going to get EB-5 investors. I'm going to pay them nothing. Okay, great. You can go in and get one EB-5 investor, help them get their residency, pay them almost nothing on maybe $1 million. But then you go in and raise maybe $5, $6, $7, $8 million from that same investor, because a lot of these guys consider investments less than $5 million worthless investments. That's how much money there is overseas, guys, is that they're sitting back going, well, if we don't have at least a $5 million investment, we don't want to invest with you. And they ultimately want to see like $20 million in a very rapid period of time. So we have to prove we have deal flow in order to get some of this stuff. Now, when we do this, if they invest $1 million in the EB-5, one, that buys their residency for a visa. And they may do this for multiple family members. So you might have multiple family members, 5 family members, $5 million. You have a $10 million cap raise. Then you take the other $5 million in a regular LLC. They create an LLC. They hire a third-party registered agent. They come out and put the bylaws together and an operating agreement. Boom. They're U.S. investors. And they just bring that money straight into the LLC and they invest it into your deal through the regular SEC laws, guys, that you utilize for syndication anyways. Okay. But now they make a larger return on the remainder of their money. And you should structure them to win and set them up to win, because these people will end up being investors for life. Okay. So anytime we have overseas agreements, guys, this helps our economy from job growth and overseas investment capital. How many of you guys think that like the Saudi Arabia is going to come in, invest $600 million and there ain't going to be Middle Easterns moving to the United States? I mean, you got to be brain dead and stupid or stupid to think that. There's going to be a lot of immigration. India, some of the best and smartest tech people in the world. China, we have some of the largest investors, entrepreneurs in the world, manufacturers, and they're coming in right here in our country. Why not help them come in and take their dollars to invest in our real estate, right? Ladies and gentlemen, for more content just like this, more ideas, I know I would get a little loose in the mouth. My kids are asleep. It's late at night. Sorry if profanity offends you. You know, if it does, you probably won't make it in business anyways because it's brutal. You got to have a set of testicles to make it in this world. If you don't, no problem. Come work for us. We'll hire you. No big deal. We will put you to work. God bless your heart. We'll take you in as an employee. And there's nothing wrong with that. And for the rest of you guys, just click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Pound that thumbs up button because I always deserve it. Because you know the content's always good and you always know that I'm giving you truth. And I'll give you no bullshit, no fluff, truth. God bless you guys. Good night. Click, subscribe, follow, and comment down below. If you guys are rewatching this later, just hit #repeat in the comment section. God bless you guys. Good night. Go out and have a great weekend with your family. Until next time, continue compounding your success.